Welcome back to another banger. In today's video, I'll be going over the tragedy of Macbeth. I'll be discussing my thoughts on the play as well as answering some questions. Let's get it. Macbeth is the story of a stubborn Scottish general who falls victim to the torment of three witches telling him that he will one day take the throne. This prophecy leads him down a dark path and he becomes progressively blindsided by the light of the undying ambition to fulfill his alleged legacy. Throughout this course, along with the persuasion of his lady, he becomes cruel and detached from morality, being one who comes to be responsible for many deaths. Let's just say Macbeth had a lot of 6 feet deep holes to dig. An element that adds interest to the story is that Macbeth is not like the typical criminal. He's not comfortable with the atrocities he commits. Macbeth descends from a respectable military hero to an unstable, unscrupulous killer. Along his venture, his character changes to become deeply disturbed and overridden by guilt. The further into his journey, the more he grows to be evil-natured and so consequently responds to every issue with murder and violence. However, one evening, halted by the sudden griefful news of his past wife, he drops the unperturbed facade and begins to reflect on his life and choices. Quote, "Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then it is heard no more." Unquote. He comes to the realization that his efforts were nothing but meaningless, trying to achieve an unintelligible standard in which does not pertain importance in the grand scheme of things. Basically, this man's was a walking L. Anyways, in the eyes of the typical teenager, hearing the name Shakespeare puts one automatically to sleep. However, let me tell you, the book has a lot to offer. Despite the book's setting in Shakespearean times, the content within persists to be incredibly relevant, and it'll even teach you a thing or two about important values. Not only should you read Macbeth because you have no other choice, but because it follows the enticing life of a man who falls into a dark pit of regret. Sounds a lot like my life choices. The play, while it is short, is jam-packed with action, plot twists, and suspense that constantly keeps the reader on edge. Anyways, believe it or not, Macbeth can be incredibly eye-opening, or eye-closing if you dislike reading. Shakespeare is known for his enriching literature which encourages critical thinking and is known to be quite challenging. This is beneficial to your overall reading, writing, and understanding skills. Macbeth's themes are drama-oriented and extremist compared to the life of an average Ute. But do they still include important lessons? Yes. Yes, they do. Some prevalent themes in the play are corruption, unchecked ambition, tyranny versus kingship, fate and masculinity, as well as emasculation. A parallel can be drawn between the theme of tyranny and kingship and politics in the real world. The leader of Russia, Putin, relates a lot to Macbeth in the way that he dictates in a tyrannical manner and resorts to murder and violence when he does not get his way. He threatens with nuclear weapons from a place of insecurity and paranoia, just like Macbeth has done in a similar way, kills when he gets uncomfortable. It is no secret that politics these days resemble more to a Broadway show than to rationality. In Macbeth, fate is an important theme which helps piece together the final message. In relation to my life, the idea of fate has taught me that your actions and the way you display them among others will ultimately result in your fate. Hence why it is important to lead your life being aware of your actions and to choose them wisely, whilst regarding ethics and morals. Basically, when you proceed with unchecked ambition provokes corruption, and corruption provokes your inevitable fate. The story of Macbeth can relate to To Kill a Mockingbird in the way that both stories are driven by a will for justice to prevail. The endings of both stories line up as both result in justice after a series of wrongdoing and malevolence. They are similar in relation to the depth of the characters, as well as the way the characters are predominantly driven by fear. A theme that makes Macbeth particularly interesting is Shakespeare's depiction of emasculation. Macbeth is strongly conveyed by his evil-spirited wife, Lady Macbeth, who uses Macbeth as her personal pawn to achieve her ambitions. Emasculation is prevalent as she persuades him by a form of degrading his masculinity, as well as belittling his manhood. Quote, "When you durst do it, then you were a man, and then to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man." Unquote. However, in the process of attaining the throne, the two run into many obstacles and are confronted by emotions so strong they are driven to display erratic behaviors which lead to their individual fates, suicide and murder. Macbeth is basically a play based on the loss of sanity, a lot like what goes on in Joe Biden's presidential office. And I am no Republican. All to say, I thoroughly enjoyed Macbeth and think it is worth the read. I particularly enjoyed Shakespeare's depiction of emotion throughout the play, as well as the entertaining themes that culminate to convey a message. I was met with a sense of righteousness and justice after just watching the absolute chaos that was brought upon Dunsinane. It made me happy knowing Macduff was getting sturdy on Macbeth's grave. Oh no, looks like Burnham Wood has come to Dunsinane. I gotta go.